Jack Emmons is in the studio with us, UK All-American. I was told by Kyle Mason not to say former All-American because once you're an All-American, they don't take
always an All-American.
That's exactly right. He was fun to play with, wasn't he?
Cal was one of those guys that, spent way too much of his time trying to make everybody else look better. He was one of the best at being a coach on the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, he had been around basketball his life. His dad coached, so Cal was, if you got open, you knew you were going to get the ball.
Yeah.
So, but
I remember the dinner. They used to have a preseason dinner for the media, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the 76-77 year, Joe Hall giving us a little breakdown of his team, and he said, but the guy who's looking as good as anybody is the new guard, Cal Macy.
Mm-hmm.
Like Cal, Kyle Macy.
Right.
Running the team, running the scout team, giving our guards fits and that kind of stuff. And we thought, well, this guy must be pretty good, because back then you didn't have all the recruiting
That's right.
gurus that you have now. And so I might have heard of Kyle Macy prior, but didn't know that it was down to Kentucky and Purdue. And, Truman Claytor grabbed the scholarship before Kyle could make a decision and all that stuff. But when he joined you guys, and Larry Johnson was one of my all-time favorite players.
Hey, Larry,
but he was a different kind of point guard, wasn't he?
Well, he was a different kind of point guard. LJ was he was as quick as anybody I've ever seen with the ball in his hand from one end of the court to the other.
Yes.
So
well, that's how you beat Providence in the NIT.
That's right. That's exactly right.
He went length of the court, weaving through everybody.
I mean, and
dropped it in at the buzzer.
3.5
layup.
seconds or something.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's with the ball in his hand.
Yes.
He was as quick as anyone. But Larry was another one of those guys that when it came to defending, I mean, Larry had arms as long as AD. I mean, as Davis. I mean, he was long and he defended. He created a lot of shots for everyone because the other point guard just didn't want to handle the ball against him. I mean, he was that kind of player.
Tell me your thoughts on Calipari, his recruiting style, and the job he's done. I mean, back-to-back number one recruiting classes, what's not to like. But some people criticize the one-and-done situation, but he's only, I guess, playing it for what it is. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, and I definitely am not a fan of one-and-done.
No.
Don't get me wrong.
Look, when you were playing, if a guy went pro, it was called hardship.
It was
truly
truly hard.
He almost had to prove it, didn't he?
He had to prove almost that.
And I'm not saying let's go back to that.
No, and I understand that. But I'm not a fan. I mean, I think it hurts having broadcasted NBA games for 25 years or however long I was doing it. I mean, I think guys coming in too early hurts both the college game because it takes those players away. And I think it hurts the NBA as well. So I would like to see players stay in college longer. I mean, I just would. Now, having said that, I would much rather have those one-and-dones on my team than to have to play against them. You know what I mean? I mean, I'd much rather have them with me than against me. And, I just said the one thing we had that this team doesn't have, and the last couple of teams didn't have, was experience. Mm-hmm. And I think it has hurt Kentucky's team the last couple of years. I think that has hurt. There have been times when you would just like to draw on having been in those situations before, a number of times before, where they haven't been there. So that's not good. But I do like having those players on the team. I think Cal does a tremendous job finding a way to get those guys on the same page by the end of the year, which is very, very tough to do. I think he does a great job of allowing players to be themselves, taking advantage of what they do well, and then getting them all on the same page. I learned a lot about Terrence. They were doing this drill, suicide drill, and
running up.
You run up and down, do suicides. You got to do 10 in 10 minutes, and a couple of players were really struggling at making the time, And Terrence Jones, and it was right after the Indiana game. I mean, people were, what's wrong with Terrence? And, and I'm thinking, my goodness, the guy had one bad game. I'm like, come on now, give the guy a break. But anyway, they were in practice, and there was a player having trouble making the times and had missed probably 5 of the 10, and, if you miss the time, you got to run those over, maybe 6 of the 10.
Everybody runs.
Everybody. Well, that player had to run it over.
I see.
And if you miss one, you had to run that one. Terrence missed it one time, and there was one player that missed 5 or 6.
Wow.
So Terrence ran his extra one, could have walked out of the gym. They were finished, could have left. He stayed with this player who had missed all of those 5 or 6. And he actually ran those with him, every one.
Wow.
And when that player fell behind on the timing, and it looked like he wasn't going to make it, Terrence got behind this guy with 2 hands and physically pushed him to make sure he made every one.
Wow.
And Terrence, he didn't have to do that. I would never have thought that he would have gone through that. I know he was down after that IU game. It was just one of those situations where you just don't, they were talking about him like he had about 25 straight bad games. Yeah. And, but for him to step up and do that kind of stuff and to help this kid, this other player, get through these things and pat him on the back and, you just love learning that about a player, and that was something with Terrence that I never would have thought, but I learned a lot about him when he stepped up to the plate and ran with this player to make sure he made him.
Marcus Teague, ready for the NBA? Well, not ready, but will he go? Will some team take a chance with him?
Oh, there's no question.
Really?
There is absolutely no question in my mind. And I said the same thing about Rondo when Rondo came out. A lot of people talked about Rondo's not ready, he can't shoot. You just have to understand the mentality of the NBA coaches. And I don't know, I can tell a quick story about Doc Rivers. I'll tell you about Doc Rivers, and this kind of sums it up for you. The Orlando Magic, I was broadcasting their games. We had the first pick in the NBA draft, and it came down to, I think, Emeka Okafor, who had 4 years in college.
Yeah.
And Dwight Howard, who was coming out of high school. Mm-hmm. Now, we know what has happened since that time, but it was one of those 2 guys were going to be number 1. Charlotte would have gotten the second pick, so they're going to get whoever we don't take. Mm-hmm. So I go to Doc, and I say, Doc, surely, because I didn't like guys who hadn't been to college. Right. I just didn't think they were ready. Surely you're not going to take this high school player coming out when you got this guy's had 4 years of experience. And he says, Jack, here's the way I look at it. He says, regardless of when these guys come into my system, it's going to take them 3 years to learn my system. He said, you already have to break them from their bad habits out of high school. They go to college and they stay for 4 years. Now you got to break them out of that system. He said, and the body's 4 years older, you beat up, and, he said, why wouldn't I want this guy coming right out of high school so I can teach him my system? His body will be stronger. He gets to run my system longer. He gets more years in the NBA, which makes him a much better player. And when you think about it that way, I think Teague would, maybe I'll whisper this, so I don't want him to know I said this.
Yeah.
But
he's on his way to Starkville.
He's on the plane. I just left practice before I came here. But I don't think there's any question he'd be a top 15 pick.
No kidding.
I really believe that. For sure, the top 20.
In spite of a questionable jump shot, just like Rondo.
Well, same thing.
He's not Rondo.
No. The same thing I told people about Rondo. I was doing an interview, and I said, can you name me 5 point guards that have come out of college over the last 5 years that can shoot the basketball coming out of college?
That's fair.
And I had this guy who's a noted basketball guy, and he got to think, and he said, well, you had but he named some. I said, yeah, but he was a 2 guard in college. Yeah. He wasn't a point guard.
Right.
And he said, yeah, but I can't remember the kid who got hurt on the motorcycle in Chicago, came out of
Jason Williams.
Said Jason Williams. And I said, well, yeah, but, Jason. And I said, even if he was a point guard, I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
And point guards going into the NBA can't shoot.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched Jameer Nelson in Orlando. He came out of up east. He came out. He couldn't shoot. Now he can shoot the basketball.
Yeah. Who couldn't shoot? Magic Johnson.
Magic couldn't shoot. I mean, if you go all the way back.
But he developed a jump shot.
He does. He did. I mean, you just don't get many point guards coming out of college that can shoot the basketball. Yeah. You don't go into the NBA to play the point guard as a shooter. They teach you how to shoot You go as a playmaker. You go as a guy that can run the show. And that's exactly what we're seeing Teague do now.
It has been a way too fast hour. We'll do it again. Great to see you,
Dick,
as
thanks so much for the invite. Anytime you need me, you know I'm here.
All right. You are one of the great ones and one of my boys. Thank you so much.
All righty.